Hey everyone, it's Bryce from Scrape Diary here. Today I want to share a project with you that I've been working on. As you can see on the screen, I've been working with the UK government's gender pay gap service. Now it sounds a bit strange, but if you're in sales or marketing and you want to find a business in the UK with more than 250 staff, this is a great resource for you. It's got all the business information, who you need to contact, and quite often you can get a website for the business as well. Now, as we'll get into, there are over 12,000 businesses on this website with more than 250 staff. So if you want an efficient way to access this data, maybe pull it down into a CSV and manipulate it, you're going to need something like a web scraper to break the website down and let you access that information in a more straightforward way. So that's what we're going to be building today. Now, this project is going to be in two parts. The first part, we're going to inspect the website. Later on, we're going to be writing some queries that will pull out the information that we need, and we need to break down the website. I can show you exactly how to use the developer tools to do that, so we'll get stuck into that firstly. And then in part two, we're going to be using a tool called Apify to build the web scraper, and that will go through all the pages and pull out the information that we need. So we're going to get stuck in. That's what we're going to be doing today. Quick thing, before we get there, head on over to scrapediary.com if you haven't already. That is a newsletter that I run every week where we do projects like this. I show you how to build web scrapers. I show you all kinds of things that you need. If you're a growth hacker, you're in sales, you're in marketing, you want to grow your business, Scrape Diary is going to give you the tips and techniques in your inbox every week. Great resource, jump in there. So what I'm going to do first is have a quick look at this website, and we're going to start analyzing it in terms of how we would actually build a web scraper. So basically, if you go to this website, you're going to see a search box here. So you can search for a particular website. So that you could put in any business name in there, and you'll find it. If we just search without putting in anything, what that's going to return to us here is basically a website with all of the results. And you can see here that has about 12,000 employers also in there. Now, if we wanted to pull through these, we can click on them. You can also filter these by various filters, so employer size and sector and all those sorts of things, reporting status. But if we actually just want to wholesale just pull all this information out of the system, we can do that. That way, we can upload this into a CRM or something like this, or enrich the data that we already have. So what we're going to do firstly, if I just clear all these filters, we're just going to get a feel for how this website works. Now, you can see here we search. What we essentially get is a list of all of the business names going down. And you notice eventually we hit to the bottom, and then we get an option to go next. So if we want all of the results from this website, we're going to have to basically sit here for days clicking through next, next, next. And we don't want to sit here all day doing that. So we want to build a web scraper that can go through and click all this stuff for us. Now, you'll notice here as well, when we click on any particular business, so essentially what we get the name of the business, we get the address, and we get their industry. So that's really helpful. But we really want to know the size of the employer. So it's all well and good. We know they might have 250 staff, they've got 1,000, they might have 5,000. That's going to basically determine how we're going to run campaigns to them. We wouldn't try to sell to a 250 staff business the same we would to a big enterprise. So what you would need to do in order to get that information is click on their name, which then gives you a list of reports that they've made. And this page here is a bit interesting because we basically have to scroll down. We can see there was no report given by them in 2019. There's a report for 2018, 2019. When we view that report, that is when we get the employer size and the person responsible, which is really helpful because this is a person we may want to talk to about this business at a very high level if we want to sell them a service or sell them a product. Or even just to understand who people report to in this organization. Okay, so if we just take a step back, essentially what you're going to have is a list of businesses in here, and we need the scraper to go from page to page, finding all basically these links in here. So we basically need to know all of these businesses. And then separately to that, we need the scraper to go to each of these businesses. So essentially click in here and then find the most recent report, which is this one here, open that, and then we need the scraper to pull out this relevant information in here. So we're mapping it out. To think about it, you could break it down into 3 steps essentially. So the first step is go down the list, find all of those businesses, and pull out the links to those individual pages. Then for those individual pages, find the report, and then for the individual report, open that link and get the information that we need. Okay, so that's basically how we're going to structure this. What we're going to do now is we're going to open the developer tools, and that is going to help us to inspect this website so we can start looking at how the code is written. And remember, it's the code that our web scraper is going to be looking at. It's not going to see it in the same way that we would on a screen. It's going to be looking at the HTML. So if we hit inspect on this, that is going to open up the developer tools, which you can hopefully see on the right. So as I basically scroll over certain bits of the text here, sorry, the code here, you can see it highlights elements on the screen. Essentially what our web scraper is going to do is it's going to use jQuery, which is basically a way of selecting the HTML tags where our information lives, and then it's going to be able to pull out the information for those tags. Now, if I've lost you, have patience with me. You'll see exactly how this works in part 2. But for now, what we want to do is just basically map out, and we want to identify the elements in here that we're going to need to give to our scraper. Now we can see here that this is a list, and I just want to close this list item here. You can see here that essentially what we've got is a list of list items of class document. And that's really handy because essentially what that means is when our scraper comes to this page, it can run some code and it can just basically step down each list item and then look into those list items to get the information that we need. So if we just take the top one, so we've got a list item here, we've got a div, so this is a comparison table. Under that, we've got this container which has the text that we want in it. And then we've got a few things. So we've got this h2 or header 2 tag in here, and that in it has a link, so an A tag here, and it's got basically a href element on it. So that's going to be the link to the individual page that we want to go on. So we're going to want to get that bit when we do the scraper. And what it's also got on that A tag as well is the name of the business. So if we grab this A tag, we convert the name to text, we'll get the name of the business. If we take the href attribute off it, then we'll get the link to the individual page. So that's 2 bits down. We'll grab the address as well. That's useful to have in case you want to put that into, for instance, like the Google Places API, or we want to do some sort of lookup on it later. That's really good. And then we'll likely want to get this, what they're calling metadata, but we would essentially consider the industry that they're in. And when we expand that out, you can see it says metadata text value. That's the class, this DD tag, and it gives you that in there as well. So why am I showing this? Essentially, on the next part of this video, what we're going to want to do is build a scraper that pulls out the results of this page. And what it's going to do is it is going to go down each of these list items. If I can find it quickly, it's going to go down, where is document? So, yep, cool, sorry. So it's going to go down each of these documents, and then inside document, it's going to get this A tag. It's going to pull the name off that for the name of the business. It's going to pull the href off there in order to build a list for the second scraper to go through and visit the individual pages. It's going to get the address using the address tag, and then it's going to get the industry with this metadata text value element here. It's going to grab that and it's going to grab the text off it. Okay, now, so that's what it's going to do on this page, but there's only a certain number of results that are actually on this page. So when we go over to the scraper, we're going to need to tell it what to click on this page in order to move to the next page and get the next page of results. And we know that we're going to have to click on this next item in here. So if we basically inspect that, we're going to take a look at what that is. So when we hover over it, we can see here there's a div class pagination next, okay? And that's going to have a link on it. So when we build our scraper, we know what we're looking for on the page. We are looking for pagination next, or at least an element that has that class, and we know we need to click on the link that's underneath that class, right? Now, the reason why we would use pagination next, if I scroll down, is because you notice on some of these pages there's also a previous item as well. So for instance, if we inspect this previous item, we also get pagination previous, okay? And we don't want to click on that. We don't want to be going forward and back and forward and back. We just want it to go next to each page, okay? So that's two really critical elements that we've got down now. We know when we go to this page, we know how to pull off all the business names. We know what we're looking for. We know we need to get that link to the individual page below it. And then we know what element to click to go through and step through each page on this website, okay? So that's that bit done. Now, say if we do click on one of these businesses here, right? What we need is to get the report. Now, that might be something, for instance, if we needed to go through, so you'll notice here, like, not every business has reported, for instance, for 2019 or 2020, okay? So not every business will have a report. And we don't necessarily want to build in a bunch of conditional logic there to check, the report. So we need to find a way of simplifying this. Now, you'll notice here, when we go inspect on this view report, it's interesting because what essentially this is doing is it's essentially giving us a link, href, to /employer/this ID/2019. And you notice that this is the report for 2019. So essentially, the way they've laid this website out is that for an individual employer like this, you'll have the employer, this will be their ID. And then, as we've seen here, if you can just go /2019, and that will take you to the pay gap report. Okay. Sorry. So that'll take you to the pay gap report. So now we know that if we find the individual page, we can just put a /2019 on it in order to get to the report that we want. And that is very, very handy. So as we saw before on that top level page, we're getting a link with the company name. If all we need to do for a particular year, we want to find the report, go /2018/2019. That's going to take us straight to the pay gap report that we want. Okay, now the information that we want is on this page. We said at the start we want employer size because that's going to tell us how to segment this list, into businesses with 250 staff, 1,000, 5,000, that sort of thing. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to inspect the HTML on this page. And then what we can see is we've got here a section, metadata, employer report. So we know that we can go directly to that. There's only going to be one of those types of elements on this page. And then you're going to, again, have this metadata text label, metadata text value. Now, essentially what they've done here, if you see, they've essentially created these rows here, right? So what we would probably do when we're going to build this scraper is we're going to probably look at all of the divs that are inside this class, and we're going to step down each div, and we know that essentially it's going to be the same format on every page. So the first div is going to have metadata text value. That's going to be equal to the date when the snapshot was taken, when they reported. The second div, okay, that is going to have the that's going to have the employer size, and then underneath you're going to have the person responsible. Okay, so that's in there. Now for the person responsible, you'll notice that you've actually got two spans inside these. So for that third one, what we also might do is search for text inside these span items, knowing that the first one is going to be this person, and then their title is going to be there. So we can go span 1 is this person, span 2 is the director. Now, one other interesting thing I've noticed is that, okay, so there's some other links underneath this. These link to other pages that tell you more about the pay gap, how employers can close the pay gap, that sort of thing. There's also a link here that says what this employer says about the gender pay gap. And the cool thing about this is this actually links to a page on their website. And this is really powerful because for the first time that I'm aware, there's actually links to their publicly facing website back to their company name, which is really, really cool. So quick point of difference, the name that you register with the company's house isn't necessarily the name that you go to market or you have on your website. That's your trading name is what you have on your website. Your company name is what goes to the British government. Sometimes it's hard to link those two things, particularly if they're spelled differently or they're wildly different. So this is really good. It points us to that. We're going to want that information as well. So that to get that, essentially we can look at these divs that are in here. So div of this style. And we know if we step basically down to the third div that's there that has that style, we can essentially pull the link, the href attribute off that A tag in there, and that's going to give us that as well. So what I wanted to do in this video is essentially give you an idea about how we start to think about building a scraper by looking at the HTML on the website, and specifically the types of tags that we would be looking for. Now, in the next video in part 2, which I'm going to put up, we're going to take all this information and we're going to use it to build a web scraper with Apify. Apify is a really cool tool. It gives you access to a headless Chrome browser that will go to this website. It will pull all of the code down and it'll execute some code that we write. And a couple of lines of code. Don't freak out. It's quite easy once you know what you're doing. So now that we know those tags, on part 2, we're going to write the code, we're going to test it, we're going to set it loose, and it's going to start pulling all these results in for us. But if you haven't built a scraper before or you're new to it, try out. Go to any website that you're familiar with, inspect the element, or you can open the Chrome DevTools, and you can just freely see the code that's on there, and you can start to look at it and start to think about, okay, are there repeating patterns in the site? And you can exploit those when you're building a web scraper. So guys, that is all for today. As I mentioned, if you want more videos like this, including part 2, jump on over to Scrape Diary and jump on the mailing list. We run through lots of projects like this, so we're going to send all that information straight through into your inbox. I'll leave it for that today, and sign up and you'll get part 2. All the best.